given a very good introduction about the sector already, wherein, farming is a very important sector. And as you're just discussing outside, what is happening is, when we look at this agri sector, you need to look at it from two lenses when it comes to tractors and farm equipments. Tractors is basically just a replacement for manpower or say bullock power or animal power. Farm equipment is where the specialization really needs to come in. But we are not really there. But of course, definitely some improvement has happened in the tractors. And when I look back at it, say over the beginning of the previous decade, our sales were around 4 lakh, 5 lakh annually. From that, we've reached about 9 lakh 50,000 sales in the previous fiscal 23. So there has been near doubling of sales. What was very interesting, especially on the tractor side, was during the pandemic, which is fiscal 21, all my auto sectors, be it commercial vehicles, three-wheelers, two-wheelers, passenger vehicles, everything declined. And some of them declined by 20-30%. Whereas tractors are shining light. Tractor sales actually rose in fiscal 21. And there were some reasons wherein, of course, there was a lot of reverse migration that happened. People did not have other areas to spend in, which is why the tractor industry has started going from strength to strength. Fiscal 20 onwards is what you could say, because you've seen, new sales records being set every year. But however, the story for farm equipment is a bit different. The thing is, it is a very unorganized space, and the idea is that we are still very low in farm mechanization when we compare ourselves to other countries. So to dive down deeper, I have got a very distinguished panel with me. We'll start off with Dr. Pradeep. So, as you're saying, Dr. Pradeep, what do you like to talk about the emerging trends in the tractor industry? And everyone talks about, digitization is one of the new buzzwords that everyone is referring to in every sector. Do you really see that happening in tractors? Because say, for example, in cars, you've got things like connected cars where it helps. Do you really see any demand, or do you really see any utility for it in the tractor industry, for example?
Good morning to all. Digitization in tractor industry may be in the infant stage. They are using it that for maybe the scheduled maintenance and other things. Farmers are not getting much of the benefits from the digitization. Maybe they may be able to contact the OEM directly before it was happening through the dealers. But definitely the connectivity between tractors, that is not to be happening in Indian farm industry, because our farms are very small. If you have less than 5 acres of land, there is only one tractor is running in the farm. There is no need for connectivity. But the point is, there should be a connectivity between the equipment and the tractor. That's very much required. The tractor driver is operating any equipment, but he is not knowing that what is happening in the equipment, what is happening in the application side. So whenever you are thinking about the application operations like seeding, transplanting, fertilization, chemical application, there has to be a connectivity from the equipment to tractor driver to see that if it is happening. Do we have a starting point in India? Somewhere some startups did something to do with that. But as a whole, in the organized or the unorganized industry, we don't have any product. We are very weak in agri-electronics. There is a huge lot of potential in agri-electronics so that the equipment can be equipped with things which can give a lot of feedback. Maybe to the farmer, to the OEM manufacturer, and also the tractor industry. At what speed the equipment can be operated. And at that level, what is the efficiency it is giving. Because these are not the things coming in maybe 1 or 2 years. It will happen over a time. So we need to put in much effort to maybe use the technology. For that, our organized sector has to work together with other stakeholders to bring in more maybe sensors or small sensors. I am not talking about very costly sensors to give a complete idea or a virtual terminal to the operator. I don't need it to happen in the near time, but simple things. If my seed drill is giving seeds in all rows, any rows is blocking. Now what is happening? The operator is completing the task only after germination. Germination, it is only happening they will only know that. In agriculture, that is a major problem. We do a seeding. After maybe 10 to 15 days, you will know that germination happened. Or my seeds are on the top. Or the seeding was happened too low. Okay? So, if we can equip the new equipment to help the farmers to see what is happening in the during the process. During the process, what is happening, that is much more important than what has happened afterwards. You can't analyze it afterwards. That's one point. The second point, the equipments. Everybody from industry, that the export side, our tractors are doing a wonderful job, but the import side, other than tractors are doing. We are spending a lot of money in the import side of farm equipment, maybe in the very costly equipments, maybe in the balers and other things. So we need to, the organized sector has to put in investment in this sector to develop more and more equipment. And also some digitalization has to be happen so that it can give a operational perspective to the user or the farmer that my operation is successfully or satisfactorily completed. And I will get, I am 100% confident that my operation is done and I will get the yield I am hoping for. Mohit.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So now that on the topic of digitization, and I think Mr. Animesh and his company plays here well. So what I would like to ask you, Animesh, here is that, one part is digitalization of actual operations. There is another part which is digitization of the sales process itself. Do you see that taking off, say, for example, in some other sectors, you've got, say in India itself, you've got Mercedes-Benz and Ola who've bypassed dealers or are, directly going D2C. Do you see that playing out in tractors or farm equipment? How do you see that happening?
Thanks, Mohit. So one thing we have to understand is that over the last 5 years, 2018 onwards, because of data costs becoming the cheapest in the world, and then COVID, which increased the digitization of the farmer, the digital divide which we used to talk about between urban and rural India is reduced by less than half. Right? So in urban India, we were talking about an internet penetration of 60-65%. In rural India, it used to be less than 20%. It's now up to 40-45%. We're talking about it going up to almost 60% in the next 2-3 years. So the Indian consumer, the rural consumer, the farmer, it has already digitized at a very, very fast pace. And in some cases, at a pace faster than the OEMs. So existence and the growth of platforms like Vishnu's and mine shows that the Indian customer, the farmer, is willing to come online, willing to look at information, willing to trust that information. So the first step has been cleared when the customer is online, he is visiting platforms, he is trusting platforms. Now, one has to understand as to why dealers existed in the first place and what was their role in the entire value chain till about 5 years ago. They were the ones influencing the decision. They were the ones, the salesman was the guy convincing the farmer which product to buy, which product not to buy, which is beneficial for him, which is not, and farmer was none the wiser, right? He had no other way to independently verify that information. There were influencers and brokers and everybody in his vicinity, but all of them were, let's say, impartial. Rarely impartial, sorry. Because all of them were, on the payroll directly or indirectly of some or the other manufacturer. So there was no way of him for getting unbiased information. With platforms, that is possible. Now, as a next step, what we see is that once a farmer has made a decision of what to buy, dealerships will start to becoming fulfillment centers. And the entire purchase journey will start to happen more and more online. So, talk about me, the last 3 cars I bought, I don't know where the dealership is. Never went there, right? The guy came to my house, gave me my test drive, I booked the car at home, he delivered my car at home, and that's the end of the story. So I believe that because in new products, there is no quality assessment which he is doing. Test drive in tractors is also very, very limited because until and unless it's a new product which he wants a demo, which also happens at his home. At the dealership, nothing happens. You can't really test drive a tractor on the road and get a feel of the vehicle, right? So that part is not there. So yes, I do believe that over the next 5 years, dealerships will continue to exist, but their role will change. Their role will change to becoming more of a fulfillment center. Their role will be to assist in the transaction in terms of getting the financing, managing the finances, down payments, etc., RTO registration. All of that will continue to remain the work of the dealership, but the sales process will start to shift more and more digitally, and dealerships and the OEMs will be adapting to that.
Right, thank you. So now the question that you brought up, a very important thing, is financing. Now that is something that everybody in the industry, be it tractors or farm equipment, is what they're really grappling with. Because again, when I look at the other sectors, be it any of the auto sectors, which is direct, which the end user is retail, which is two-wheelers or four-wheelers, you've got a very well established financing model. In the construction equipment industry, which we're discussing here, again, there is a very well very well established financing model. How do you see that happening in the tractors or in the farm equipment space? What needs to be done? Because the thing is, banks. I mean, when we speak to banks at CRISIL, the problem is everyone tells us, help us understand the sector, help us price the risk properly. But the problem is now banks are being conservative, so they're either overpricing their risk, and that leads to pricing the overpricing loans, which leads to customers facing extremely higher interest rates. So what is it that can be done? This is, at the intersection now that we're talking a lot of digitization, and how does that improve? How can that help financiers improve their underwriting, for example? What are the steps that you see can be done to help aid? Because once once financing has been improved, you'll see a lot more sales take place. And Mr. Vishnu, you can start off, and then we can have Mr. Animesh's.
Namaskar, everybody, and thank you, CVF, for organizing this. Also, welcome the expert panels, media partners, vendors. Thank you very much. As far as the farm mechanization as a concept we speak, one thing what we need to understand that in last 4 or 5 decades, definitely we have achieved a lot. Surely there were challenges which we have overcome, and we have to achieve more, definitely. And there will be challenges, and we will overcome that for sure. Now, as far as the credit is concerned, the finance is concerned, of course, the industry has matured. The kind of numbers we have achieved in last 3 to 4 years, we have almost sold, let's say, 6 lakhs to 7 lakhs to 8 lakhs, and last year we have sold almost 9.5 lakh tractors, machines, which itself is kind of an achievement. Of course, there are challenges when it comes to providing finances, both at the financial institutes end and also at the farmers end, because the parameters on which the finance is provided, there are various parameters like whether he is a first-time borrower, what kind of civil ratings he might have, and most of the times, if you see, the tractors, maximum he must be a first-time buyer or maximum a second-time buyer. So the track record of the farmer, of the consumer, is also very, very important when it comes to, let's say, giving a loan or a finance. So there has been various aspects where financial institutions are also working and trying to work out customized plans to provide easy finance, let's say with minimum down payments. So yes, as far as the finance industry is concerned, they are trying to work out various customized plans where buying a tractor can be a little easy, having a finance can be a little easy, and thus, end of the day, sell more and more machines and provide more and more finance. So yes, that particular challenge does exist.
Right. So finance in the tractor space is riddled with paradoxes. Here are some numbers, right? So a new tractor loan, you and I can get it 8%, 7.5%, 8.5%. New tractor loans start at 13% plus. Used car loans, you and I can get at 12%, 13%, 14% in the worst case scenario. Used tractor loans start at an IRR of 20% plus. NPAs of new and used tractors are much, much lower as compared to new and used passenger cars. So then why is the discrepancy? It's not a riskier product to lend, right? But still the customer is being made to pay 1.8 to 2x higher IRR, which I think you mentioned, Mohit, is a fair point that banks and NBFCs do not have the correct capability to underwrite any segment of population which does not have a salary slip, right? Till this conversation started, all of us in this room could have picked up 5 personal loans without getting up from our seats, right? But for a tractor owner, for any rural farmer, it is not possible to do that because no bank, no NBFC has that capability to objectively assess that risk. So that is the first point. Second, why the IRRs are higher is because manpower productivity in rural lending is much lower as compared to urban lending because very obviously the population is segregated, the market is segregated, your manpower productivity is low, and hence your cost of servicing a particular customer is higher, which the banks are building in. Now, in both of these areas, whether it is ability to underwrite a customer in a better way and to improve manpower productivity, I believe digitization has a huge role to play. Right? We saw this in used cars, we saw it in gold loans, we saw it in personal loans, where the process was different, the process was very difficult, it was riddled with paperwork. A few startups came, they questioned the status quo, and now that has become the status quo. We saw that in passenger cars in the last 4 years, where in used cars, nobody was willing to lend more than 80% to a used car buyer. Now there are startups which started offering zero down payment schemes, and now there are banks doing the same. So I believe in the next 5 years, we'll see a lot of startups coming into this area using digitization, using drone-based imagery, satellite-based imagery to validate a farmer's land, farmer's house, more better way of estimating his crops, his future income based on his current sowing patterns. All of that will become possible, and hence our ability to underwrite to that section of population will become better. Now, one more thing which is sort of a tailwind in this direction is that both new and used tractors are priority sector lendings. So any startup, any company which is able to crack this model will have more than enough capital, cheap capital available from banks to scale their business, because RBI is after their life to sort of solve their priority sector lending, right? So I believe it is just a matter of execution, using the technologies which are already available. We are not looking to wait for any new technology to mature and then use it. We have those technologies available. It is just a matter of sort of getting the execution right, solving for underwriting and manpower capability, manpower productivity, and I think the interest rates can come down much lower. And once they come down much lower, I believe that is a huge opportunity for the industry to move from 10 lakhs to say 15 lakhs in the next 5 to 7 years.
I think having understood these challenges, still majority of tractors are sold on finance and loans. So that is the fact of the matter.
Right. So talking about something you touched upon is the used tractor market. So that is something very interesting which is playing out, because say even especially when I look at any other sector, say commercial vehicles use market was very well established. A large fleet operator would downsell their vehicles to a small fleet operator or to operators operating in tier 2, tier 3 cities. How do you see what are the dynamics to be taken care of or to be looked at in the used tractor market? Because the used tractor market again is not very well understood. It is not very well spoken about. Say even when you spoke about digitalization and some startups, that has happened. You've seen some startups in India getting listed which talk about the used two-wheeler and the four-wheeler market. But there is not such a big play. Of course, two of your companies are there and thereabouts. But apart from that, what is holding people back? Or how do we see uptick for used tractors taking place? Both of you, either.
Okay, sure. So I'll take a first crack at it. See, anything which is used, right, or anything which is pre-owned is a trust deficit market, right? For a new product, there is no issue on quality. You have a manufacturer warranty. You have an OEM backing it up, and hence you and I as consumers are relatively okay going and buying it off the shelf. We'll start with some examples which are closer to connect with all of us, and then we'll move to the used tractor segment. Look at used cars, look at used phones, look at used consumable goods, your I mean, consumables, your laptops and everything, right? You and I will be very apprehensive of going to a random shop whom we don't know and buying a used car or a used phone, right? But once a startup comes, solves for quality, gives you a warranty, gives spends on brand building, yes, that is very very important. You and I will be a lot more okay buying a used car from a Cars 24 than a Khanna Motors, right? You and I will be will be a lot more comfortable buying a used iPhone from Cashify than a Majestic Mobile, right? Because you know there is a company behind it, they've solved for process, you trust that brand, and hence you are willing to make that investment. Now, something similar is happening in the used tractor space. The used tractor market, if we talk about, we are almost talking about 1.5 to 1.8 times the market of a new car market. India is the largest market in the new car space. In the used car, we are a lot more higher than anywhere else in the world. We're talking about, say, 1.5 to 1.8 million sold in India, and that's the rough ballpark estimate. All of this was unorganized, right? New car dealer is getting to exchanges your old tractor and then he sells off his used tractor, but there is no focus on customer experience. If you go to his shop, वो बोलेगा सर वो पीछे खड़ा है, जाके देख लो, वहाँ पे बैटरी नहीं मिलेगी आपको, टायर नहीं मिलेगा आपको ढंग से, और उसमें धूल जमी हुई होगी इतनी मोटी, चालू नहीं होता है वो, and he will treat a used car buyer, in a very very different way than he would treat a new tractor buyer. Similarly, there are smaller brokers which are not able to facilitate finance. If a customer is buying a 3 lakh or a 4 lakh asset, he is looking for finance. But a small broker would not be able to do that because a bank from whom he will take finance, he will pay the broker once the asset is legally on the customer's name with the bank's hypothecation attached. Now he can't do that till he receives money which is not available with the financer. So you see, the wheel is stuck. Right? The flywheel is not moving here. So if organized players like what we are doing at Tractor Junction, we have about 20 different physical showrooms. We are doing more than 120, 140 transactions a month in less than a year of operation. Now, Vishnu talked about new car finance attach rate, which is almost at 80-85%. We see used tractor finance attach rate at more than 70%. So there is a huge gap in the market for somebody to come in, offer warranty, offer quality products, offer finance, solve for supply, and I think the used tractor market is going to grow at a much rapid pace than the new tractor market in the next 5-7 years.
Yeah, yes. In fact, the old tractor industry seems to be really, really interesting, Animesh. In terms of, if we are selling around 8-9 lakh tractors per year when it comes to new tractors. But I think as far as old tractors are concerned, we are almost selling 1.3 to 1.5 million, almost 15 lakh tractors per year. Of course, maybe one tractor is transacted more than once or twice. So the industry looks really, really promising when it comes to old tractors. Of course, what Animesh mentioned, these challenges are there. On the other hand, at the farmer level also, there are challenges in a way wherein these old tractors, while reselling, may not have the documentation which is required for selling such a old property. So both, as far as the sellers are concerned and the buyers are concerned, of course, there are challenges. But what we have basically done as a platform is, we are providing this old tractor service to farmers totally free of cost as a service, wherein we have run a simple campaign of photo khicho, tractor becho, wherein a farmer is open to basically list his tractor, just click couple of pictures, put all required details, post it on the platform, and a buyer who is looking for a specific tractor can actually go online on Kheti Gadi, try and find what are the new tractors nearby his locations, connect with the farmer, and then have a transaction directly. So we are almost selling 4,000 to 5,000 tractors per month in that particular manner, where we are only connecting the farmers in terms of buyers and sellers. Of course, it's a big, big challenge to monetize this business, Mohit.
Right, so that, the tractor industry, as everyone has spoken about and as the panelists spoken about, is actually a better established, or you could say is well organized compared to a black box, which is the farm equipment industry. And the reason is, not reason, one of the problems when you look at it is that, farm mechanization in India is only about 40 to 45%. That is also too on the, you could say a bit on the optimistic side. So, Dr. Pradeep, what do you think, what are the steps needed? Why is that the case? And what are the steps needed to start, seeing larger uptake or improved offtake of the farm equipment sector in India?
During the Green Revolution, the farm mechanization helped in achieving the food security. The major target states were Punjab, Haryana, and the Western UP. Here, the farm size was larger, maybe semi-medium to medium farms, and that was perfect ground for mechanization, early mechanization. In total, if you think about the maybe farm holdings, around 87% is small and marginal farms. That is less than 5 acres, and average size is 1.08, and that is also shrinking. That may be come down to less than 1 acre in the 2030. And these 87% of farmers or farm holdings are only cultivating around 45% of land. So this, if in these 40 years, we are not concentrated on mechanizing the small and marginal farmers. We were every time focusing on the semi-medium or medium and the large farmers, which the farmer size only maybe 13 to 14%, but the land holding was around 53%. That is why, even that is the case, why we are getting around 45% mechanization level. If that means maybe the medium size farmers, farm holdings, we have maybe around 60 to 65% mechanization. But that is also happening maybe for particular crops, maybe in the rice and wheat. If the Gangetic Plains, we are only doing the rice wheat crop rotation, until that is fully mechanized, even though it's not the case, then we have around 90-95% mechanization level. But that data doesn't shows up that also, because even in Punjab, the rice transplanting, which is still manual, which is the labor intensive job, and you need to be mechanized that one, then only your mechanization level can start picking up. Sometime also other cases also, farmer wants to harvest by manual only. He doesn't want the combine to come into picture, right? So in these cases, your farm mechanization will not getting up. In the states of Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh, still farmers are using the bullocks. Maybe not for soil preparation, even some are using for soil preparation. All the interculture operations are done by bullocks or manually. So we need the maybe small compact tractors which can cater to the small and marginal farm holdings to do all the operations. It is not that maybe if you consider the seedbed preparation, we call it, or the tillage, around 90% is mechanized, but that is only one part. The other, all the activities like seeding, transplanting, intercultural, earthing, fertilizing, spraying, harvesting, these are done by manually. In the case of maybe the two cash crops of cotton and soybean, we are not anywhere near to any mechanization. In cotton, almost everything is manual. So to get to the maybe level of Brazil or even the China of 60 to 65%, we need to mechanize the small and marginal farm holdings. As Mohit said in the intro, that we need to develop farm equipments, appropriate and affordable. Appropriate and affordable means it has to go to the small farmers. The industry only sell tractors. Without equipment, this doesn't mean any sense. If the tractor has to be fully utilized in a farm, then there has to be equipments for different operations. Then only the person or the farmer can rent it out also. He does it for his farm and also does the operation for other farmers, maybe neighbor. One of the other thing which is very major constraint in the mechanization, that say suppose there is a customer hiring center. Every farmers are doing the rice or a wheat crop. Everybody's requirement is maybe in the very short time duration. Everybody wants the machine at the same time. So the availability of machine is also very constrained. So the maybe small farmer will go to manual interventions. So whenever maybe if we want to continue this momentum of tractor sales in the coming years, we need to bring in more equipments, more and more equipments. Because in India, we have different agroclimatic zones. Even in the one agroclimatic zones, our crop production practice is different. So to cater to these things, our machines has to be little custom made for a person working in maybe in UP and Punjab, producing the same, cultivating the same crop, may do the different practice. So there must be some customization has to be done in the equipment also. Moreover, there is not much change in happening in the farm equipment industry. Farm equipment, I am not talking about the tractor. New models may be looking into the particular case scenarios there are, but as a whole, even the 40 years old technology is still selling. So we need to maybe as a industry and other new players, startups, we need to make more inroads into the mechanization into the small and marginal farm holdings to increase the level of mechanization.
So you are absolutely right. But when we speak about farm mechanization, we need to understand it as a whole. Of course, tractor is one of the major components when it comes to implementing farm mechanization. But having said that, we also need to understand that, of course, we spoke about new tractors, we spoke about old tractors. We are now speaking about implements which are again used and new. Then we have small farm machinery, which is like power weeders, power tillers, brush cutters. Then we have harvesters. Then we also have tools and equipment. And now we also have drones. So farm mechanization as a whole, of course, there is a large scope when it comes to improving our country's percentage growth in farm mechanization. As you said, it's at 40-45% compared to globally where they have reached anywhere between 60 to 90-95% maybe. So when you speak about farm mechanization, of course, tractor is one important component. With that, there has been innovation which has been happening in terms of small farm machinery for which the growth has been, if not significant, but gradual. Today, the drones, almost the industry is around 1,000 crores. So yes, I think the government, the OEMs, then startup like ours, Animesh, if we collectively work towards it, definitely farm mechanization is going to grow in India in next, I would not say 3 to 5 years, but at least a decade or so.
So I think what Dr. Pradeep rightly mentioned is that the Indian farmer is a very risk-averse customer, right? He is not going to gamble with his livelihood because a sales rep from a company came in and told him that my implement is the best. That is not going to happen, right? So implements and farm mechanization, there are two basic challenges. One is that it's a very demonstratable product. You have to demonstrate and achieve what we in the startup world called PMF, product market fit, right? And that product market fit does not come because the OEM or the manufacturer says that they have achieved product market fit. It's when the customer starts believing what the value proposition that you are communicating. Second, it's a business model problem. In India, because the land holdings are small and he is going to be using that implement for a very, very short duration, buying an equipment and figuring out ROI will only work for, say, top 5, 7, 10% of the farming community. The remaining, if we have to take what Dr. Pradeep very rightly mentioned, that this problem is, the requirement is highly seasonal and extremely localized. A couple of startups came in which were not able to crack it. But I think custom hiring centers were the buzzword about a decade ago. But I don't think this is a problem which should be solved by the government. There have to be startups, there have to be innovation coming in from the private sector. And the government will then have to support it because for the first 5-7 years, these companies will not be able to stand on their own 2 feet. The unit economics will simply not work out. But I believe public-private partnership is the way forward, both in innovation, in terms of the customizations, in terms of demonstrating this product, which Dr. Pradeep mentioned, and then making sure to create channel, to create avenues for the customers to be able to access these products, and only then can we see India moving up as rapidly in mechanization as we have in tractors.
I just wanted to make one point here. No, this 82% of marginal farmers, fragmented land holdings, definitely this exists. But there is also one thing which we have to read between the lines, which we have generally also experienced. What has happened is a father is passed on a 10 acres of land or a farming land to his sons. And then maybe he has got 2, 3 sons. Not necessarily that all the sons are doing farming. Someone is maybe teaching or someone is working in a mandi. So there is possibility that this fragmentation of land and this 82% of marginal farmers are on papers. Not entirely I'm saying, but certain percentage is definitely, in terms of marginal farmers, it's not necessarily that the entire 82% is marginal farmers. The land holdings for marginal farmers is anywhere between 2 acres to 5 acres is what we say. But there is a possibility that one son out of these 3, 4 sons is handling maybe 10 acres or 15 acres of land as well, and when it comes to the actual implementation.
Right. So I think Dr. Pradeep and Animesh both spoke about hiring of equipment. Now what happens is, while there's a lot of chatter and a lot of agri startups already playing in the space, we've seen even, everybody is trying to move now to an asset light strategy. Be it the hotels where, say, IHCL, which is Taj Group, is moving to asset light strategy. Even coming to startups like Zoomcar, which got the Startup Award of the Year, has moved to an asset light strategy, when just pivoting to a platform. If that is the case, and you've got PPP, how do you see that startups start playing in this? Can a startup come and act as a platform where it helps, say, for example, how Mr. Vishnu spoke about connecting buyers and sellers? Can a PPP be explored, such as you'll have CHCs on one side? Because CHCs, of course, and I would like one of you to speak about that, if all of you have an idea wherein what are the counterparty risk on CHCs, and to reduce that, can you have CHCs operating as asset owners, and wherein startups start operating as a platform to connect an asset owner with a farmer, to make it easier for everybody in the ecosystem, so that farm hiring or equipment hiring really takes off?
See, rental business, as far as tractors and implements are concerned, we need to really closely look into it, and we really need to dive deep to understand what exactly is happening when it comes to specifically on the rentals front. Because a tractor going from one village to another village, also for the rental purpose, has some kind of a cost. So how do we basically align this entire rental industry? So as we are doing it for the old tractors, connecting the person who wants to buy and sell, similarly we are also working towards providing the tractors within the region for farmers who are actually looking out. So currently, last month we've done around 12,000 hours per month. But again, this is only because farmers were connected within the geography they are operating. Another aspect, as far as the rentals and CHCs are concerned, I would not say trend, but what happens actually at the village level is that if I am a tractor owner and I am giving it on a rent, the person to whom I am giving, he's going to pay me once his crop is harvested. That's the reality. Maybe it's not happening all across the country, but it is definitely happening in a few regions where the money on which the tractor owner is actually it's his bread. But so that money is almost like 3, 4 months after he rents the tractor. So he has to basically invest his time, his energy, and of course the fuel costs. And as far as custom hiring centers are concerned, we all know that to some extent the state of Madhya Pradesh was successful a few years back. Even one of the major players tried to do it in Karnataka, but somehow it didn't go well. then even the government is giving these subsidies of around 40% when it comes to custom hiring centers. But what happens is, as we all know, the entire agri-business is based, it's very seasonal. So there is a possibility that around the year, few months, they are completely utilized, and few months they are underutilized or not utilized. So these are, small challenges which do exist when it comes to rental. But there is no organized data or a plan where the Zoom car or Uber Ola concept can actually be implemented into a tractor and a farmer business right away. Animesh, I think this is what I want.
So I think the point of seasonality does remain, and if you speak to Zoomcar, being asset light, it has its own set of challenges because there is no quality assurance. There is limited value addition that you can do apart from just connecting buyers and sellers. So I think and credit orientation, which Vishnu mentioned, that's a hardcore reality, and he was polite when he said that it happens in some regions. I believe that's the standard practice. Anybody paying upfront in cash is the exception and not the norm. So I believe, and so one has to understand two things. Tractor rentals is not a problem. Tractorization in India is not a problem. You want one tractor, you will get five, right? Any person who's buying a tractor has already built in the revenue which he will get from rentals in his purchase decision, right? He has already made that calculation that I am buying a tractor because I will use it for my farm, I will give it to 10 people, make say 50,000 bucks an annum, and that's why he is deciding to buy a tractor. So tractor rentals, tractor mechanization tractorization is not a problem. Mechanization in its current shape and form, we are using implements which are from the Smithsonian era, right? We're talking about cultivators and rotavators, which are practically pieces of metal. That's it, right? No maintenance, no heavy maintenance is required. Maybe some maintenance is required in a rotavator, but for cultivators and disc harrows and nothing is required. So the custom hiring centers which are today are not adept there. So I believe there have to be village level entrepreneurs coming in, buying higher technology based implements, which Dr. Pradeep just mentioned, which are actually needed and which can move the needle in terms of farm productivity, but those are slightly technologically advanced implements. They'll need to be cared for, they'll need to be maintained in a proper way so that they can give any meaningful return to the owner. Now, all of that happening through government-based infrastructure does not look possible. So I believe the public-private partnership, where it comes in, is that the subsidies don't go to specific implements, but to creating an implement bank, and then there can be startups around, ensuring that there is sufficient in business which is generated around the year for that particular implement owner, connecting different implement owners. For example, if a particular implement is available in near hub A, its demand is coming near hub B, that cross servicing and cross facilitation needs to happen to ensure business all the year round. And third, then there is the financing piece, which obviously helps the micro entrepreneur, gives him the loan that is required to set up the banking. Again, he will not have any guaranteed income. And then the credit piece, which Vishnu mentioned, the ability for a farmer to pay, which is sort of hinged on the future return of his crop. So I think all of these 3-4 things will need to come together to create this bouquet of solution which can sort of push mechanization upwards.
Just to add to that, even for the SMAM happened in 2014, and it is then the custom hirings and the CHCs were picked up, or farm machinery banks. For the last maybe 8 years, we have only 40,000 CHCs out of the 6 lakh villages. So that is the main problem. See, without only with the government intervention, we can't increase the farm mechanization levels. We need village entrepreneurs or the startups to make it happen. Because maybe in the coming years, the CHCs is coming down. It will not, the government funding for the things will come down. Maybe for the particular direct farmers, subsidy scheme will be there. Maybe for CSCs it will come down due to the coming up of startups. So the only possible way is to engage the private industry with, see, the agricultural, as Vishnu and Avinash said, the maintenance is a problem. See, in the wheat rice belt, I am using a seed drill for wheat sowing in the month of maybe October and November. The next usage of seed drill comes in the next year. So for 1 year it is idle. I am not getting any revenue from the machine. So these things comes into picture. That is why the Uber Ola model will not work in the agriculture or tractor and mechanization field.
Right. So, Dr. Pradeep, you spoke about, developing some technologies or, improving implementation or improving technological advancement in the farm equipment industry to make it more suitable for Indian farms or Indian farmers. So, how do you see, for example, you are an academic / researcher. How do you see institutions like yours, researchers like yours really playing a role? Because say, for example, yesterday all of India was crazy and all of the world went crazy when we got Chandrayaan to land on the moon, right? So that is a big win for scientists / researchers / academia. How do you see that? When does a Chandrayaan moment come for Agri, for example? What needs to be done there?
Chandrayaan is fully funded by government, right? For to mechanization to happen, it will not happen. It will not happen by the government only. It has to come from industry also. What is lacking is the industry, academy or the research institutions. That linkage is very much lacking. There may be different constraints from the industry point of view and also from the academic point of view, but there has to be some hand-holding. Otherwise, the quality and the precision of the machines will not improve. In developed countries, why there are so many new equipments is coming from the private industry, many of them coming from the academy or the research institutions. Because the private industry fund the academia to work on the particular problems. Our lab also were working on developing machines for maybe 35 to 50 HP tractors. But maybe the last 2 years onwards, we are also shifting the focus on to developing machines or the systems for small and marginal farmers. Maybe in the coming 3 to 5 years, it will happen. It will come out. So we are also, everybody is thinking that we need to go into the small fields with maybe small machines. The tractor may not go into it. Suppose a sugarcane farmer, he does the seed preparation for the planting, and then everything is come into manual. Nowadays there is a change. There is a strategical change. The usual planting system has been changed to transplanting. When it went to transplanting, it is mechanized. So that's why we need to maybe change some process or production practices also to increase our mechanization levels. And also the industry, maybe the new startups, there are so many incubators in academia. We are also helping with them to bring in more hardware, not in software. Software, there are a lot of players, but in hardware, we are trying to bring in more hardware so that it can help the farmers to undertake each and every processes in the fields. Another one of the important point, just I want to make it for the industry, that in agriculture, everything, the recommendation is blanket or generic. Because those who recommend it don't want to see a failure due to the recommendation. If the doctor gives you one goli in the morning and one in the evening, you will eat that much only. Nobody is going to take two, right? But farmers sometimes do 1.5 goli in the. If the recommendation is 100 kg of nitrogen, he will put maybe 125 or 150. That affects the overall probability. There is nothing great in that to ensure the yield, because 100 kg was more than enough. Also, when somebody is recommending 100 kg, he was also not sure. He was sure that 75 kg will do the work. He is going for the 100 kg. And when it comes into the spraying, we do a blanket spraying. If the pest exists or not, we do blanket. So in the operation wise, in the chemical application, fertilizer or the pesticide, we do a blanket. We need to come up with solutions which can only do a selective operation. selective spraying or selective application so that the overall cost can come down, the benefit of technologies can be put into the farm fields. It will definitely happen, but it will take some time because, in India, the agricultural technology development is on a slow pace. So if you develop a technology to come into the field, it will take a minimum 5 to 7 years, because 2, 3 years testing is required to ensure the robustness of the technology and the machine. As Avinash said that for cultivator and harrow it doesn't matter, but a application machine, it has to be there. The position has to be there. For example, the machine, seed drills. When there was a lot of huge and cry that Punjab's water table is going down, we need to go into a direct seeded rice. What we did some modification in the existing seed drill used for wheat, then used that for rice. But the correct way is to get new technology that can be able to do a direct seeding of rice, rather than modifying the same to do a maybe a at par job. So there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of people are working. Maybe in the coming days we will see a light in the tunnel in the mechanization. Maybe in the next 10 years the levels will be going up. In that has to happen, our tractor population has to increase. The availability of power in the field has to increase so as to use the equipment. So both the things are has to be in sync. The tractor population rise, the farm power rise, and then when the farm power rise, your equipments, the investment and also the availability will also increase. Then it will increase the total farm mechanization.
This is actually a very apt example. Why? I would like to basically go back to Chandrayaan 2. Many people say maybe only because of the landing purpose, it was not successful or whatever. But when we speak about agriculture as such, we are not going to get the Chandrayaan 3 moment like it's there. But even when we compare it with Chandrayaan 2, we have gone there. We have laid down the foundation. We have prepared for it. There has been few innovations which are in the market. Farmers are actually using it, utilizing it, and also benefiting it. So we have actually crossed many milestones. Only the landing part is something which we really need to maybe work on, take some corrective measures, and definitely, in next 10 years or so, I think we can very confidently achieve the Chandrayaan 3 moment, for sure.
So I think Indian agriculture is probably going the in-space way and not the ISRO way with public-private partnership, because I think for startups to come in and invest heavily in R&D is not going to be possible. They are going to need access to think tanks like Dr. Pradeep to be able to fasten their process, because this is not software development which can happen. Right? This is hardware development. This is product development which has to work out in the fields. It has to be properly tested, and for that to happen, while the government has created underlying infrastructure by creating ACE institutes and researchers, their innovation to reach out to the market faster, and for the private players to be able to develop products faster, rather than going into, say, a greenfield development. A brownfield development looks much more faster, much more plausible, and sort of speed up the process. Otherwise, it's going to take a long time.
So thank you. We've run out of time. Do we have time for questions?
I believe we can take one.
Yeah, somebody with a mic.
Hello. Thanks for the very good session. So just I would like to know, what you see the tractor industry, how go in coming years in terms of size, So, and another question is what you see this land consolidation, right now you see that we are talking about land holdings are very small. What see in the coming future is there is a possibility there will be land consolidation and then we are getting opportunity for these higher HP tractors.
Sir, your question is for me or someone else? See, as far as the tractor industry is concerned, I mean, we are witnessing around 10% of CAGR. Where definitely the growth is going to be there. As far as the marginal land holdings and implementing mechanization into this fragmented land holdings, there are few initiatives in forms of FPOs where the many farmers are coming together for a particular objective and then collectively basically implementing the farm mechanization. That aspect is there. Another aspect is contract farming, but we really have to look into it in terms of how we can bring many farmers under one roof to basically innovate on a particular crop and get maximum harvest out of it. So that we really have to look into, sir. But the initial steps has been taken, and tractor industry is very, very promising. There is a lot to do, and it's going to grow really well in the coming future, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so